Yo, remember when I said,
Ayanokoji doesn't have good character development. At least that's what this guy said, and he's technically right.
yeah, there's no more technicality in that anymore. This guy's just something else. I spent all this time on Tumblr studying what makes a good character, and the guy who gets me my view traffic goes against every single rule. I know I'm making a lot of Ayanokoji content, but let me rant about his character for once, because that shitty video does not count. Things began to change in advanced nurturing high school as the story progressed. The students, the systems, even the teachers, but our fucking protagonist knows nothing of a word like change. Born and raised in a white world, Ayanokoji wanted to understand how the outside worked, but despite setting his sights on being a normal high schooler, on removing the white room mindset, Ayanokoji has pretty much done nothing to actually do any of these. Almost 28 volumes in, and his main internal conflict doesn't have any narrative importance at all, and that's my main issue with it. The same Ayanokoji that started in year 1 is basically the same as the Ayanokoji we have now, and it's far from just Ayanokoji's issue. At least in my opinion. I know I probably offended the light novel readers, but let me explain. I think Ayanokoji is a really good character, or at least has the potential to be if you take him at face value. He's a character fighting off a system, both internally and externally, that wants to use him and his abilities as the perfect weapon. He was literally born to be a bargaining chip for his father to get more attention to the White Room, and his success is only just an opportunity to him. Despite coming from the White Room, Ayanokoji wants to be normal and weed out the mindset planted in him to attain that goal. But at the same time, Ayanokoji's a Gary Stu. For y'all who don't know what that is, a Mary Sue, or a Gary Stu if it's male, is a character which is essentially perfect. They have no flaws that affect the narrative of the story and can solve any conflict so long as there's a non-zero chance. And Ayanokoji? He's pretty good at everything he has to be. Chess, supposedly beat Stockfish once. Martial arts? He almost had to be stopped or else he would have caught a body at 7. Manipulation? He's averaging 40. Yeah, he's clearly a Gary Stu, but that doesn't automatically qualify him as a bad character. Although it is hard to make a Mary Sue good, it isn't impossible. There is a video out there that already goes over this exact topic and many more about Mary Sues, but TLDR, Mary Sues can be well written. Is Ayanokoji an example of that? I wouldn't say so. So, to break down Ayanokoji, I wanted to use the 3 main pillars of a character that I just made up right now to prove my point. Motivations, conflicts, and flaws. I made it these 3 because personality really depends on some of these in one way or another, and there isn't really anything to critique there. We'll start with motivations. Motivations are the character's wants that are narratively relevant. It's what your character ultimately wants to do or achieve in a story, and is the driving force for most stories. For example, in Apex Legends, Crypto's motivation is to expose a syndicate for rigging the Apex games and abducting his sister after they found out. Of course, it obviously depends on the story and genre. Yuto over here doesn't really need a big motivation other than to enjoy his time with Rika because he's just in a slice of life rom-com. So with higher stakes, the motivations tend to be bigger. As for Ayanokoji's, there are 2 main motivations any fan of Code should know. He wants to, 1, live a normal high school life, and 2, raise someone capable of surpassing him. These goals make sense in context. He was raised in a closed-off environment hailed as the perfect product, a title earned from his inhuman curiosity. That same curiosity turned to understanding the outside world, and changed from wanting to understand how the weak worked to just wanting to experience it legitimately. During this time, Ayanokoji grew to hate how the White Room operated, and snuck out to advanced nurturing high school to experience the education the White Room was trying so hard to surpass. When his father tries to get him back to the White Room, his dislike for the White Room's policies encourage him to try to disprove his father, to show that anyone outside of the White Room can succeed too. This all feeds into the nature versus nurture theme of Classroom the Elite, and I have a video on that. You can click the eye over there. I've never used this eye. But all in all, it makes sense. The issue with that is he doesn't try to do any of this. He stopped trying to remain normal by episode 10 of season 1 with his plan to put D-Class on top of the uninhabited island test. Like, sure, he was forced by Chabashiro with her blackmail, but I think I know why he stops here. This motivation is nothing more than a cover Ayanokoji uses on himself after the true nature of the school kicked in. He's literally known as the unreliable narrator, and I will get back to that in a second. But all Ayanokoji does is stay low-key out of strategy, and he uses that excuse to get people off his trail. What he really is doing is his second motivation, raising a worthy opponent. And who did he choose? Horikita Suzune, Miss Potential herself. I have an issue with this, especially, and it's just personal. She's done absolutely nothing at all. I haven't seen her develop convincingly enough to justify his choice. She's only class leader because Ayanokoji used her as a scapegoat for all the good he's done to the class, and the class just went, yeah, I guess she's the leader now. Like, she's nowhere near capable of beating Ayanokoji, and her only 2 real feats came with safety nets and double teams. This isn't about her though. The only logical opponent for Ayanokoji is possibly Shiro, and that nigga, the last time I saw him, he was probably in volume 0. Assuming it's a pure battle of wits, no one can realistically come close to Ayanokoji. So he wants to remove the White Room mindset but continues operating under their OS, and wants to raise a rival but pick the one he is carrying the most. It's the 3rd year now, and if she goes through any change that suddenly makes her viable, I am dropping Classroom the Elite and moving to Chainsaw Man. Okay, for the second pillar, we have conflicts. Conflicts are things that go against the character's motivations or wants. This can be another character, a group, a system, or even internal issues like illnesses of both the body and mind. It's what makes things feel like progress, and it could even be something vague like time. For Ayanokoji, it's pretty simple. He's fighting off the White Room in both mindset and existence. In addition to that, the students who are out to get him. Ayanokoji stands alone in his desires and is fighting all those which come against him, and those who just have to be in their way. In this video about Jack Reacher, I'll put it on screen, this kind of thing is what amplifies the Mary Sue to be actually viable. It doesn't matter that he's overpowered because he's going against prodigies and the products of and facilitators of the same government institution that made him the Mary Sue he is. Now there's some sort of balance in sheer number, and that helps to fix his issue with conflict. Another more nuanced conflict is Ayanokoji's nature in opposition to his desires, and now we get into the contradiction. Ayanokoji wants to be normal, or at least wanted to, but his calculating nature prevents him from understanding how normal people behave and live. I believe this contradiction is intended and is not Kinugasa's bad writing. His mindset has been formed and carved into stone from all his years in the White Room, yet Ayanokoji grew to dislike that and try out what they're incessantly trying to improve. This is all good and all, but how many times has it been referenced in any way? Off the top of my head, I can only name like 3 or 4 times. If this is a more unconscious thing, I'd excuse it for its lack of deliberation, because sometimes conflicts are best shown and not explained. Like when a character goes through an event that changes them but only becomes clear later on. But with Ayanokoji, it's handled like, I wish I wasn't like this. Anyways, I'll go off manipulating teenage girls without any restraint despite my hopes. As for his other motivation, Morigata has no hopes in surpassing him. Like I swear, if it's like you put Patrick Beverly on KD. KD is always gonna cook Patrick Beverly. And no, I am not referencing this because of a short I saw. Now for the last pillar is flaws. He has no narrative flaws at all. Every special exam and plan against Ayanokoji always had a way for Ayanokoji to take advantage of, and nothing that came at a cost to him was a result of his consistent shortcoming. Every situation had a contingency plan, and he always came up with his desired outcome, in true nature of a Gary Stu. I already brushed on this, but Mary Sue's lack flaws, and because of that, lack any development. They don't change because they don't need to. Sometimes this is pretty much just lazy writing. Same as pretty much any power scaling shonen, shit just sounds like a gay binding vow. They're more than capable of solving issues that come their way because they're so stacked, and a lack of convincing conflicts makes shit boring. Flaws and space for growth make characters interesting, and that's why every writing video yells for some sort of flaw in your OCs. So what do good Mary Sues do? They become their own kind of conflict. Okay, from now on I'll be very incoherent, and it's all very subjective coming from a guy who barely writes at all. But if my rambling makes sense, please subscribe. Did the bun shine? Yeah, good. I'm trying to get to 1K before I die, okay? I have nothing to live for. Now, in writing, a lot of people like to focus on questions like, what is this story about? How will it proceed? Etc. But most like to summarize stories into these bare-bone questions. What are your characters? What do they want? And how can you stop them from getting it? Many say this simple system is the structure of every story, and in other words are the fundamentals: character, motivations, and conflict. Do you notice how similar this is to my 3 pillars of character? Stories can work without the well-defined settings or world building because a cast can carry interesting things in said blank spaces. Those things can be defined and certainly help, but without characters, you don't have as powerful of a story. Now, in reference to Mary Sue, since they lack flaws and genuine conflict, you make them the source of conflict. Place them in situations where their abilities, all while being amazing, aren't enough to sway everything, and there is still that sense of uncertainty. One of the reasons why Code is so popular is because you like to see how Ayanokoji handles things, and having the uncertainty where the money is at makes his character and line disposition so much more entertaining. So TLDR, Ayanokoji is a contradicting Mary Sue who both wants change and doesn't try to. So if you want higher quality, please tell me in the comments. I have no motivations in my life, so don't be surprised if I don't post on remaining shit. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching the whole way through. I appreciate y'all. Peace.